What's up, back again with another video. In today's video, man, we're going to be doing my book, now episode number 5. And today's video is going to be a little different. So we're going to be starting off here. I want to go over some things before we get into the actual video. Today, this one will be a little bit shorter than the next couple of episodes. The next couple of episodes will be a little bit larger in scale, because this chapter in general was kind of slow and a little bit more kind of setting the tone for the EDF forces and kind of what they're working with during this time. But before that, I just want to let everyone know that I will be streaming tonight, about an hour or two after this video goes live. I have also some new games being planned. Generation Zero is apparently this robot survival war game. It's free to play currently for anyone who wants to play it. I am going to be doing a couple episodes on it. I just downloaded it today. It looks pretty interesting, so hope you guys are excited for that, as well as Roblox was announced for PlayStation 5. So it's a huge thing. There's a lot of games on Roblox that I think will be really enjoyable. Let's see what else. Also, there is a lot happening with for 2 right now. I've been doing the Ultra Master Ground, as many of you know. So if you guys are looking to join up or join LS Clan or join up with me when I'm playing and grinding, just let me know down below and we can work that out. But with that being said, let's jump in to the video. So we left off in episode 4 about a couple weeks ago, right towards the end of the treaties, and it wasn't a good time for Earth as a whole, right? The casualty rates were high. There was constant land losses throughout the chapters of 3 and 4, and it was not looking too well for just humans in general around the globe, not just specifically the EDF, not just the United States, not just, France, but just everywhere was kind of struggling. And so during the middle to late 2058, 2060s, the EDF began looking for something to help them along this journey of this war. And so that's where the EDF Soldiers Chapter 5 kind of begins, discussing the current state of the armed forces that is the EDF. For people that are just watching this and they haven't watched the previous episodes, the EDF is basically the Earth Defense Force. It's basically the protagonists in the story. They are a force created after the initial invasion of the alien force, codenamed xIL, to kind of be the Earth main first line of defense, hence their name, the Earth Defense Force. So Chapter 5 starts off, we kind of go over the average ground force trooper, or U.S. Marine, U.S. Ranger, because that's usually what the majority of the EDF is made up of, is U.S. Marines, U.S. Rangers. There's a couple French military forces in there, some Canadian, and some British, or what's left of the British forces that were able to escape the UK before its collapse. But the average soldier was running around an M4 carbine and a Glock 43. So by this point in human history, we're at Glock 43. So yes, in my timeline, the Glocks are still making their handgun. And the M4 carbine was a fantastic weapon by every means, but the 5.56 round was just not strong enough. And so putting half a clip into some of these xIL was not uncommon before they would drop. Snipers, well, most snipers were inadequate for dealing with the xIL forces, so a lot of snipers began running 50 cals. 50 cals became the number 1 sniper rifle of choice. Just that 50 caliber round going very, very fast was just their best choice. And then during the Battle of Seven Springs in Norway, the EDF were able to secure, but at a high cost, their hands on working xIL weapons. So normally when the xIL attacked, they were using weaponry, laser rifles, or laser projectile rifles, kind of like Star Wars in a sense, to give you kind of an idea. Most of these weapons were tied to the Pacific Exil infantrymen, so like kind of that idea that you were biometrically attached to your weapon, and that it could not be used unless the biometrics were reworked for the new person. But thankfully, this group of Exil did not biometric their weapons before entering the battle, mainly due to the fact that the Battle of Seven Springs was a surprise attack by the EDF forces, and the Exil, for the first time in the war, were not ready for an attack. And so the scientists were able to get a hold of the weapon that at the time they called the XM9 laser rifle, and were able to rework it. And so once they were able to work it and understand its core mechanics, this changed everything. And so at the beginning of the chapter, they kind of go over this idea of combining the M4 in this laser rifle, using the same M4 body that we can highly produce, but with the technology that is the XM9. And so these go through tons of different phases of testing. So the idea was to get a smaller barrel length, something around 14.5 inches or 14 inches long, instead of the standard 18 to 19 inch barrel that an M4 usually has. Specifically the carbine. I think the carbine has a 19.5 inch barrel. And they wanted something smaller so that it could be better for more of the city warfare that was going to be happening, especially the upcoming invasion of Yemen. Yemen is a rough battle for both sides, and it costs a lot. And that's going to be the next chapter, I believe, anyway. I think it's the next chapter, or the chapter after the next. And so a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about in this chapter were being rushed due to the fact that they need to be ready for Yemen. But after a bunch of testing, finally they were able to come up with a rifle. But the rifle really wouldn't work in the same way that you would think, and so it would eventually be scrapped as well. But they had an idea they invented a nuclear fusion battery, very small nuclear powered battery, made the weapon perform insanely well. But obviously getting small nuclear fusion batteries would be a very difficult thing amidst an entire Earth war happening currently. So they were able to use certain polymer metals to make a small 14.5 inch barrel, and it worked. They were able to wean together an XM9 platform, and were able to turn it into an SMG with the stylistics of an M4, but smaller. It's very complicated on the sense of like how they were able to achieve this, but they really leaned on that nuclear fusion battery, and they kind of worked with it and came up with new ways to use it. And from that prototype, they took them about 3 months of testing, and they came up with the first prototype of the new fully fledged weapon called the XM9ML, which is basically your standard SMG. And then again, in a few weeks, we would have another version, and by April 3rd, 2060, they were able to get the small nuclear fusion batteries in high quality, and we got the beautifully named XM98. Kind of stick with the XM name calling system. The XM98 would perform extremely well, and have over a 90% positive referral rating from troops on the ground. And so, with this new weaponry, the UOM's army begins to pretty much wean out the M4s in its army, and so there's a large chunk of M4s that are becoming pretty much irrelevant in the war. This begins a new wave of just dropping stockpiles of M4 assault rifles in the middle of Europe in raids to try to give anyone who's willing to fight at least something, especially since the XM98 didn't need M556 rounds. They used like a laser aluminum hybrid rubber round that was very convenient for manufacturing. So by the time the fight in Paris came along, so late in 2061 and 61, there was a battle in Paris, and the XM98 proved itself very good in the long term of things. And so, with that being said, I mean, it really just boosted the EDF's morale with the victory of finding a new weapon. Now, there was some other scientific stuff going on during this time as well, trying to find some new armor for troops, specifically for Yemen. Yemen was going to be an open-scale conflict, huge land invasion that was going to turn into an urban invasion, and they needed something to protect the infantry. Unfortunately, it would not come. They would test a ton of different things: diamond armor, Damascus armor, all types of different unique armors, but they were just either too heavy or too hard to make, or just too much of a pain to make. And so, sadly, the Yemen invasion would not have any armor to support them, so they would be stuck with this generic the Kevlar armor. Now, the Kevlar armor did presumably work pretty well, obviously, because it wasn't, we weren't getting completely annihilated, but Kevlar armor was very inconsistent for fighting the Exil. Sometimes it worked great, sometimes it was terrible. So there was still this rush to get new armor, but unfortunately for the Yemen invasion, there would not really be an armor option. They would be stuck with the generic. And that's pretty much where the chapter ends. It goes into some long paragraphs about the process of finding and what they would play around with and stuff. But I think this is one of those chapters where I want people more to read it than to listen to me discuss it, because I think it's more of it's more like a theory like a theory chapter, to give people kind of more background to understand and make theories about. But the next chapters will be rough. They'll be rough to listen to, especially the later chapters. Like, currently one of the chapters I'm working on is going to be very rough. With that being said, man, I know this video kind of feels rushed, but I promise you some longer ones are coming. And until the next video, man, I love you all. Love kind, you're beautiful. And I'll see you guys.